All right, Tabosai, good morning. Let us begin by thanking our sponsors for today's shir. To thank our Talmud Torah sponsors for the month of Kislev, Semi and Malka Esterson, for dedicating all the Siyumim and Rothschilds this month in memory of their parents, Yitzchak, Laib ben Aharon HaKohen, Sarah, Rachel, Bas, Baruch, Avraham, and Hinda, Bas, Henech, Efraim. To thank our Week of Learning sponsors, Michoel and Sarah Lipman, and family for dedicating the Siyumim this week in honor of Phillip, Sanfield's Siyum, HaShas, Mazal Tov, and to thank Bill Eskin for dedicating the Siyumim this week in honor of Chaim, Rothschild. And above with that, let us begin. So we have a beautiful, beautiful daf ahead of us today, really fascinating daf. Today's daf is Yud Beis 12. We are picking up in yahrzeits Hashem at Yud Aleph on a Beis, a little bit past the two dots. Let's actually pick up quickly at the two dots because we only got a few lines in there. Help frame the sugya a little bit better. So we'll say, so remember again, we are going through this series of fast days when it doesn't rain. So remember again, we've only so far covered the first three. What happens in the first three? Yechidin misanin. Only the Talmidei Chachamim are fasting. Right? Remember again, you don't have a general Taanis Tzibor, only the Talmidei Chachamim. So the Mishnah says, furthermore, you're allowed to eat and drink on the night before those fasts. So it says the Gemara, Amra Vizira, Amra Funa, Yachid Shekibal of Taanis, Afilu Achel B'Shasa Kala Laila, Lemachrahu Mispalo Tfilas Taanis. So remember again, Rav Huna says as follows, that if an individual accepted upon themselves a fast, and we'll discuss about the mechanics of accepting upon yourself a fast. I will say, so just to understand over here, that, let's translate then. So Rashi says over here, Yachid shekibal of Taanis me'esmol hariani yoshe betainis lemachar. So we'll say, so remember again, the case we're talking about over here is an individual accepted upon himself a fast. Accepted a fast upon himself. Right? So we'll discuss the mechanics in terms of how exactly that's done. But a person, let's call it Wednesday, a person said, I'm going to go ahead and fast on Thursday. So what's the halacha? Rav Huna says, he eats all of Wednesday and Thursday night, all of Wednesday night, but comes Thursday morning, his Taanis begins, and in Shmona Esrei, he will go ahead and add in Anenu. Okay, Lon Betani. So, we'll see what happens in the following case. I accepted on Wednesday, I accepted upon myself to fast on Thursday. Thursday night comes, and you know what? I decide to continue fasting. That's Lon Betaniso. Rashi says over here, Lon Betaniso, Ba'osa Taanis Shekiba Alav Shalo Acha B'Motzei Taniso, V'Lon Kol Osa La'Elishem Taanis Ala Boker. So now Thursday night, I decide to fast, continue to fast, and I wake up Friday morning. So what's the halacha? Eino Mispalo Shal Taanis. Ultimately, come Friday morning, you do not insert Anenu in your Shmona Esrei. Okay, Rashi says over here, L'machra in mispal tfilas tainis, en yochal ispalo anenu kodem shiyochal, kadei lotzeis yedei chovas tainis shal laila. So we'll say, so again, we'll explain this in just a moment. So I decide to continue my fast through Thursday night. Friday morning, I don't say anenu. So the Gemara says, Amrav Yosef, my kasav Rav Huna. We'll say, what's the logic, right? So again, remember, two cases. It's two parts of the same case. Wednesday, I decided I'm going to fast on Thursday. So I eat Wednesday night. Thursday morning, my fast begins. I say Anenu within Shmona Esrei of Thursday morning, we'll call it. I continue to fast through Thursday. I say, you know what? I'm going to continue my fast through Thursday night into Friday morning. Shachris, Friday morning, I'm still fasting. Halacha l'maisa, I don't insert Anenu in Shmona Esrei of Shachris on Friday morning. So the Gemara says, why not? So my kasavar Rav Huna. So what does Rav Huna hold? So the Gemara says, my kasavar Rav Huna, Sfira le'in misaron l'shos. Is it that Rav Huna holds there's no such thing as what we call a Taanis shos? So we'll say, we're going to be introduced to now is this concept that although generally a typical fast day is an entire calendrical day. Right? Entire calendrical day. Now, we've already been introduced to the idea that could be modified. And you could have a fast day that is not an entire calendrical day, but rather begins when? Dawn, and goes until nightfall. The question is there something called a Taanis shos? So Taanis shos is exactly as it sounds, which is, I'm not fasting for an entire day, I'm just going to fast for a couple of hours. Right? Is there such a concept like that of a Taanis shos? So is it that Rav Huna holds there's no Taanis shos, and therefore again I will say that's why The fast that I continue on Thursday night into Friday, that's a new fast. And that's a partial fast for a couple of hours. And Rav Huna holds, that's not really, Taanis shows is not a legitimate form of fasting. It's not a legitimate form of fasting. And therefore, halacha l'maisa no anenu. Otilma, misana l'shos, misana l'shos in the misbal tfilas Taanis. Or maybe not. Maybe Rav Huna holds that no, a fast for a couple of hours is a legitimate fast. It's just on a technical level, we don't insert anenu for a fast like that. So the Gemara says, Amar le Abaye, the Olam Kasav Rav Huna Misan l'Shos. So Abaye says, in reality, Rav Huna holds, there is such a thing as a Taanis Shos. There is such a thing as accepting a fast for a couple of hours. We'll define the scope of that. V'amis'ana l'Shos, mispalot tfilas Taanis. And the truth is, in general, if you accept upon yourself a fast for a certain number of hours, you would in fact you would say anenu during that partial fast as well. So what's happening over here? V'shayni hacha di'ika sha'os delayla delo kibel alei me'ikara. So we'll say, this is actually fascinating. So the Gemara says, what's happening over here is as follows. Taanis sha'os works, but Taanis sha'os only works when you accept it upon yourself in a proactive fashion. You see, what's happening over here in the case that Rav Huna said, what's happening over here? I proactively accepted a fast for when? Thursday. Right? So on Wednesday, I accepted a fast for Thursday. I'm going Thursday, right? It's Thursday night. And I say to myself, you know what? I'm good. So let me just continue. Let me just continue through Friday morning. So Rav Huna says, Taanis Shos works when you proactively accept it. But if you kind of accept it on the go, that doesn't have the din of a halachic fast. And therefore, what does it mean? It doesn't have the din of a halachic fast? I wouldn't insert anenu. So we'll say, this is actually going to be a very important point, which is really a fascinating idea, that you could accept a partial fast, but it only works if you accept it proactively. If you kind of accept it on the fly, on the go, or you extend something you're already doing, that does not take on the status of a Taanis Shos. Legabe, the fact that you wouldn't insert anenu. Mar Ukva ikla leginzak. Mar Ukva went to the city of Ginzak. Bamine, they asked from him, Misan l'Shos. So they asked Mar Ukva, can you fast, a partial fast for a couple of hours or not? So what happened? Lo havi biyadei. Mar Ukva didn't know the answer. He asked him another question. Kankanin shal nachrin. So we'll say kankanin are jugs. Right, so these are earthenware jugs that the nochrim, that non-Jews put wine in. They store wine in these kankanim, in these we call it jugs, containers. So the shaila is, if let's say they don't use these containers for some amount of time, can a Jew use them to store something as well? So what's that? So the Gemara says, so kankanim shal nochrim asruna mutarin lahav biyadei. Once again, Mar Ukva didn't know the answer. Okay. What did Moshe Rabbeinu wear during the 7 days of inauguration? Remember again, during the 7 days of inauguration of the Mishkan, Moshe Rabbeinu effectively served as the Kohen Gadol. What did Moshe Rabbeinu wear during those 7 days? Remember again, Aharon takes over when? By Yom HaShmini, on the 8th day, Parsha Shmini. Right? So what did Moshe Rabbeinu wear during the 7 days? Lo hava biyadei. Mar Ukva didn't know. They will say, just by the way, such an incredible Musar in this Gemara. It's okay not to know the answer. It's okay. Sometimes it's hard for us to admit that I don't know the answer to something, or that I don't have the answers in life. Like the Gemara Masechet Shabbos says, Lamad l'shon chalomar ini yodea. Sometimes I have to teach my tongue to say, I don't know. I don't know doesn't come naturally for many of us, because we think we have to have the answers to everything in life. Why does he, right, you will say, poor Mar Ukva, why does he going to have to record a story like this? Mar Ukva, he didn't know the answer to 3 questions. Okay, the rest of his career, right, the rest of HaShas, Mar Ukva was answering questions here and there. Why does he have to tell me? Because it's important to understand that even great people and wise people don't have all the answers in life. It's okay not to have the answers. The worst thing to do is what? Is to pretend you have the answers when you don't have the answers, because that's unfortunately destructive for you and destructive for others. So we'll say, so what happened? What did Mar Ukva do? Azlo v'shal be'midrasha. This is great. So we'll say, what do you do when you don't have the answers in life? What do? You go to the Beis Medrash. Number 1, you go to the Beis Medrash. Number 2, you ask. We'll say, number 2, number 1, you go to the Beis Medrash, because we'll say when a person is steeped in Torah, you gain a lot of life clarity. It is amazing how when I learn Torah, how when I surround myself in an atmosphere of Kedusha, there is a certain level of life clarity. And often in the Beis Medrash, you find a lot of good guys, right? So in the Beis Medrash, often I'll find someone who can help me with the clarity that I don't have. So Ukva goes, he asks, number one, you can go ahead and you can fast for a certain number of hours. Umispalulin tfilas taanis. And I will say not only that, but when you accept upon yourself a partial taanis, you could insert anenu. But I will say now again, because we have to get through the daf today, but I will just tell you, in Siman Tov Kuf Samech Beis Sif Yud. So the Shulchan Aruch paskins this way. The Shulchan Aruch says, I'm not going to get into all the, you look this up on your own. Tov Kuf Samech Beis Sif Yud. The Shulchan Aruch writes that halacha l'maisa, you could fast for a partial day, what we call a Taanis shows. Mis'ana Adam Taanis shows, Shelo Yochal Kol Hayom. Now the way the Shulchan Aruch frames a Taanis shows, we both say is like this. Taanis shows doesn't really mean I'm only going to fast for 6 hours. What Taanis shows means like this. I'm having a busy day, right? It's 12 o'clock. I realize, you know what? I haven't eaten anything. You know what? I already fasted half a day. Let me just observe the rest of the day as a fast, right? As a fast. You could do that in halacha, and that works. Even though, again, for the first part of the day, you had no kavanah, right? I just was busy. I can accept the remainder of the day as a Taanis shows, and I can insert anenu in Shmona Esrei. What's the caveat? The caveat is that you proactively accept it. So Rabbi will say, contrast this with another case. I'm just busy the whole day. I daven, I come to mincha, I realize, you know what? I've been fasting the whole day. I might as well insert anenu and just finish up the fast. Could I do that? No. Why? Because there's no proactivity, right? There's no, not proactivity, what's the word I'm looking for? Premeditation, right? There's no premeditation in that. So again, therefore the Shulchan Aruch says, Rabbi said, this is incredible, and it's such an incredible musar. So you can observe a partial fast, but it requires proactive premeditation, right? You have to have kavanah for what it is that you're going to do. I will say, isn't it incredible that kavanah makes all the difference, right? The same act. Either way, I cannot be eating the whole day. But one is just, I'm not eating the whole day because I'm just busy with stuff, versus proactive premeditation makes all the difference. Forethought in life makes the difference in the impact in our actions. Thinking ahead, having a plan, having kavanas, not just living life kind of by the seat of my pants, but going ahead and thinking things through and thinking ahead. Again, makes all the difference. In any event, so we'll say that's the first halacha. Next, hilchasa kan kadosh halacha la'achar shneimesar chodesh mutarin. We'll say halacha number 2 is that the jugs that are used to house Gentile wine can be used by a Jew after 12 months. If they have not been used for 12 months, they can be as well. So look at Rashi, 4 lines up from the bottom. Halach tam yayin nesech umutar below irui mayim. I will say it was interesting. I could use them even without what? Even without kashering them. Because after 12 months, the assumption, if 12 months of non-use, the assumption is that halacha l'maisa, any tam, any absorption is really null and void. Rashi says over here, Aval toch yud beis chodesh, tzarech irui shlosh yomim me'eslei. So Rashi over here actually describes an interesting process called milui v'irui. And milui v'irui is a process where you soak items in water for 72 hours, changing the water every 24 hours, and that has the ability to affect levels of kasha. So I will say, this halacha, by the way, is actually very important because the concept of something remaining idle for 12 months actually is a very important yisod in Hilchos Kashrus, and gives you a little bit of latitude to even kasher things which normally can't be kashered. Things like glazed china and other things like that, which normally we assume cannot really be kasher. There are certain heterim. There are certain, again, not necessarily to be used lechatchila situations, but there are certain heterim, again, when something has been dormant for 12 months. Next, what did Moshe Rabbeinu wear? This is not like a fashion shaila, right? But this is a question. Moshe was not the Kohen Gadol, yet he functioned as the Kohen Gadol. So what did he wear? It couldn't be that he wore Big Day Kahuna, because Big Day Kahuna are unique to the Kohen. So what did he wear? To which the Gemara says, B'chaluk lavan, he wore a white garment. A white garment. Wore a kittel. Right? He wore a white garment. Right? He just wore a white tunic. That's what he wore over the Shavim Milur. What is incredible? Rav Kahana Masli B'chaluk Lavan She'en Lo Imra. Rav Kahana said he wore a white tunic or a white cloak that did not have a hem. Remember again, does this sound familiar? Going back to our shkalim days, right? When the Kohen, the treasurer, would go in to withdraw the shkalim, he could not wear a garment with what? Pockets or a hem, right? Why not? Just to be above suspicion. No one should think that he's pocketing any money. So the Gemara says when Moshe Rabbeinu went ahead and served, he wore this garment without a hem. Pretty incredible. I will say, also another is sort of Yisem Nikiyim. The goal in life is to live life in a way that I'm above suspicion. You should say, people should be dan milakaf sechos, right? People should give you the benefit of the doubt. The goal in life is don't have to rely on people giving you the benefit of the doubt. That my actions ultimately should stand on my own and are above suspicion. Rav Chisda, so the Amar Rav Chisda said, top of your base, Hada Amrit Misaran L'Shos, Sofahu Shalo Tam Klum Ada Erev. So Rav Chisda says, when we say that you could fast for just hours, this assumes that what? That Halacha L'Maisa, you're fasting until nightfall. So I got a little bit ahead of myself in the Shulchan Aruch. So remember again, Rav Chisda said, it's like, because when you hear about fasting for a couple of hours, what does it sound like? It sounds like, I'm going to fast until Chatzos, right? I'll fast a couple of hours, and then, no. A Taanis shows means that you haven't eaten the whole day. Just the difference is you've only proactively accepted upon yourself a fast, for a couple of hours. So that's the example I gave you before. I'm busy the whole morning, and I just don't end up eating anything. I turn around now, it's 12 o'clock, I figure, you know what now? Let me spend the rest of the day as a Taanis. Now I proactively, in a premeditated fashion, accept the next couple of hours upon myself as a fast. But it only works because throughout the entire day, I have not eaten anything. So the Rashi says over here, Hada Tap Rashi Yud Amud Aleph, Hada Amrit Misanim L'Shos Hushlo Tam Klum Oskol Sayom Kilomar Lo Amru B'Misanim She'achal Bo Bayom Kegon She'Iskilis Anos Ad Chasi Hayom V'Achar Kach Achal De'ein Ze Inui V'Im Achal Kol Dim Chatzos Ein Bekach Klum De'ein Lo Tanish Klum. So what I say, the idea over here is the reason it's called a Taanis Shos, it's a little bit of a misleading name. It's called a Taanis Shos. I'm not eating the whole day. Why is it called a Taanis Shos? A fast for a number of hours? Because I only accepted the fast for a certain number of hours. I didn't eat the entire day. But Lamaisa, the fast itself was only accepted for a certain number of hours. So the Gemara says, Ha'amar Abaye, Ha'tainis mal yosihi. So Abaye said, I don't understand. You didn't eat the entire day. That's the whole fast. What's the shaila? To which the Gemara says, Lo tzricha de imla chamluche. No. What's the case? Well, as we said before, the case is I didn't start out the day fasting. And both say, in fact, we're going to see that the way a Taanis works is a Taanis has to be accepted the day before. That's really the way it works. So in the situation in question is, I never formally accepted upon myself a fast the day before. I just started my day, I thought it was going to be a regular day. It turns out I didn't end up eating anything. So now, in the middle of the day, now in a premeditated fashion, I accept the rest of my fast. So the Gemara says, Rav Chisda, Kol Taanis Shlo Shakalav Chamalo Shmei Taanis. Rav Chisda said in general, any Taanis that you don't fast until nightfall, literally means until sunset, is not a Taanis. So really, is that true? Meisvei, Anshe Mishmar, Misanin Velo Mashlimin. Rabbi say we will see this a little bit later on in the Masechta. Anshe Mishmar. Rabbi say we're going to speak about the Mishmoros. The Mishmoros, Rabbi say, we're used to talking about the Mishmoros of Kohanim. There are 24 shifts, 24 Mishmoros of Kohanim, right? Each Mishmar serving 1 week in the Beis HaMikdash. Each Mishmar made up of, we just did this, for those of you who are doing Mishnah Yomi, we did this, right? So each Mishmar made up of multiple Bate Avos, multiple families. We're going to see in the Mishnah Maseches Taanis in just a little bit, really fascinating. The Mishmar also had shifts of Kohanim, of Leviim and Yisraelim who would accompany the Kohanim to the Beis HaMikdash. So the Mishmar, the Anshe Mishmar, would fast during their days of service. Misanin v'lo mashlimin. But they would only fast, but they wouldn't complete the fast. So you see from here that there's a concept of fasting until when? Not until nightfall. Not until nightfall. That there's a concept of a fast ultimately that doesn't extend the entire day. To which the Gemara says, no, that's different. Hasam, let's say, urei nafshe ba'alma. Also, we're going to see the point of those fast days interestingly enough, was not to create a formal fast in which one could insert anenu into Shmona Esrei, but rather the point of those fast days was to feel a bit of discomfort in order to participate in the struggles of Am Yisrael. We'll discuss this in greater depth when we get to it in the Gemara. Rashi says, "Over letzorei nafshe imat tzibor aval ino tainis lo v'yispal tfilas eno v'lo l'kova l'vchovo klal." So we'll say the idea of these fasts. We're going to see there are different types of fasts. But the idea in these fasts was to participate in the tzara of Klal Yisrael, not to go ahead and really serve as a formal fast. So the Gemara says, Tashma, da Amar Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok, Ani mibnei banav shal sanav ben Binyamin. Listen to this. So Rabbi Eliezer ben Tzadok says, I am a descendant of Sanav ben Binyamin. Sanav ben Binyamin, I think to change it, right, to shin of, right, or san'ah. Okay, san'ah shal binyamin. Upam achas. So we'll say, what's unique about san'ah ben binyamin? We'll say, remember again, san'ah ben binyamin, well, obviously Rashi or some Shevet binyamin, remember, was one of the families who pledged wood to the Beis HaMikdash. So remember again, on the day in which you brought wood to the Beis HaMikdash, you celebrated a Yom Tiv. It was a Yom Tiv. You would bring a special korban, you celebrated a Yom Tiv. So listen to this. So Rabbi Eliezer says, I am a descendant of Sanah ben Binyamin. Upam achos chal tesbav lios b'Shabbos. One time, Tisha B'Av fell out on Shabbos, vidachinhu la'achar Shabbos, and we pushed it off to Sunday, which was the 10th of Av. Now, says we're going to see that what happens. It happens to be the 10th of Av was the date that the son of Ben Binyamin family brought their wood to the Beis HaMikdash, which meant that the 10th of Av was their Yom Tiv. So Rabbi Eliezer bar Tzadok says, what happens? So now Tisha B'Av was a nitcha, pushed off to Sunday, observed on the 10th, but now conflicting with the very date that they that they celebrated their wood donation. This inubo v'lo hishlimanu. And we fasted, but we didn't finish the fast day. We only fasted a partial day. Because ultimately, again, their personal Yom Tiv kind of trumped Tisha B'Av that was delayed. So the Gemara says, Mipnei Yom Tov Shalanu Hi. So you see, what do you see from here? You see from here that you can't fast a partial day. We'll say, remember again, we're just struggling with this idea that Rav Chisda said, any fast that does not extend until nightfall is not a fast. We're seeing examples of fast days that don't extend until nightfall. To which the Gemara says, Hasan Nami L'Tziurei Nafshei Ba'amahu. You're right. The truth is, again, remember, Tisha B'Av that's nidcha, we'll actually discuss this. When Tisha B'Av is delayed, it's not the real fast of Tisha B'Av, but rather, again, it's the observance of Tisha B'Av. That type of fast is simply to cause oneself some level of discomfort, and ultimately, again, even a partial fast suffices. So we'll say, what we're beginning to see, by the way, is that there are essentially three different types of fasts. There's a Taanis Sibur, a communal fast. There's a Taanis Yachre, individual fast. And there's a Taanis that's called the Tziurei Nafshe, to cause yourself discomfort. So we're gonna fill out these three frameworks. Tashma, Do'am Rabbi Yochanan, I hate b'Taanis sa'ad she'avol beisi. Rabbi Yochanan said, I hereby accept upon myself a fast until I get home. So we'll say, so what happened? So you see from here again that a person is able to accept upon themselves a fast for a couple of hours, not until nightfall. To which the Gemara says, no, that was an excuse fast. Hasam, l'shemute nafshe mibein nesiyahu da'avad. We'll say Rabbi Yochanan was always getting invited to eat at the house of the Nasi, and he didn't want to. So to say I'm not hungry, that's not going to work. But to say I'm fasting, ultimately, again, that would get you out of the invitation. Rashi says over here, second line, so ultimately, again, he was just doing this in order to get out of having to eat at the Nasi's home, but he wasn't really accepting upon himself a formal Taanis. So the Gemara goes right to Amr Shmuel, Kol Taanis shalosh kibal alad mi ba'od yom, lav shmei Taanis. In general, Shmuel says, any fast that you do not accept upon yourself mi ba'od yom. Now, b'pashtos mi ba'od yom means the day before the fast. So if I plan on fasting on Thursday, what that requires of me is to accept the fast upon myself on Wednesday. So the Gemara says, V'i yosiv mai. So ultimately, again, Rabbi will say, what happens if you go ahead and you fast on a day without having accepted it upon yourself beforehand? What's the status of that fast? Amra Bar Shila, dami lemapucha debal yazeka. It's like a, I will say, so a mapucha is bellows, right? The thing that you use, right? The accordion type thing that you use to blow air. It's like a bellows filled with air, which essentially means nothing. Is that if you go ahead and you observe a fast that you do not proactively accept upon yourself the day before, then a halacha l'maisa, it doesn't really have the status of a Taanis, and therefore it's just kind of filled with air. But it's such an incredible idea. It's the same idea that we mentioned before. Why is that? In other words, fasting is fasting is fasting. So what does it matter again if I accepted it? I accepted it on Wednesday afternoon, or I accepted it again Thursday morning at 5 o'clock in the morning before Alos. We'll say the idea behind it is the Gemara is trying to sensitize us to this idea that the actions of life are so much more meaningful when they are performed in a premeditated state. It's the same action, right? It's the same action. I'm doing the same thing, but one is done with forethought, one is done without forethought. And the truth is, life is only impactful, and my actions are only meaningful if they're premeditated. If I think out what I'm going to do before I do it, I have a life plan as I approach situations, as opposed to kind of just doing things on the fly. It's the same action. It's mamish the same. It's the same fasting. But lamaisa, one done with forethought, one done with premeditation. That's where success in life lies. So the Gemara goes weiter. Rav Amar Emas Mekabale. So we'll say now we've established that in order for me to have a fast day, a personal fast day, a Taanis Yachid, I have to accept it upon myself the day before. When the day before? So I want to fast on Thursday, I have to accept it upon myself on Wednesday. When should I accept it? Rav Amr b'mincha. Rav says I should do it by mincha. Shmuel Amr b'tfilas mincha. So we'll say, Rav says mincha, in this case, mincha means mincha time. Mincha time, the general time for mincha. Shmuel says, no. You accept the fast upon yourself when? During mincha. So we'll say, so again, Shmuel would say, when I'm davening mincha on Wednesday, I accept the Taanis for Thursday. Rav says, mincha time on Wednesday. So the Gemara says, Rav Yosef says, Kavase de Shmuel mistabra. It seems to be that Shmuel is correct. Ichsev b'Megillas Taanis, because we learned the Megillas Taanis. So the Gemara says, Lahen kol inish daisi iluye, mikadmas dana yesar. So I will say, so literally translated, so what does it mean? So kol inish diyasi iluhe, so any person who took upon himself mikadmanas dina, before our legislation, yaser, should be aser. I will say, what does this mean? My love, yaser atzmo betzilo. So I will say, what the Gemara is essentially saying is like this. Let's say a person accepted upon himself a private Taanis Yachid, and he accepted it on a way, but yet it conflicts with one of the dates in Megillas Taanis. Remember again, Megillas Taanis is filled with days of minor Yomim Tovim, in which you're not allowed to fast. So what happens if I accepted upon myself a fast, but that day is listed in Megillas Taanis as day you're not supposed to fast? What's the halacha? So the Gemara says, it depends. What does it depend on? Did I accept upon myself a fast before Chazal made this into a Yom Tov or not? If I accepted it upon myself first, then halacha l'maisa, I could observe my fast. To which the Gemara says, my love, yaser atzmo betzilo. Does it not mean that a person is ultimately again asering themselves, accepting upon themselves the fast by mincha time? Betzilo means by davening. Lo, yaser atzmo. No, rather it could just mean stam. It doesn't have to mean davening, but rather again it could just mean that a person is accepting upon themselves the fast proactively the day before the fast. So the Gemara says, pligi ba Rabbi Chia of Rabbi Shum Bereb. So we'll say this is a machlokes. When do you accept the fast? Everybody's agreeing that for a Taanis Yachid you have to accept it the day before. The shaila is when the day before. Chad Amar Yaser, the Chad Amar Ye Aser. So we'll say one opinion says Yaser. Now we'll say Yaser. We're going to see. Rashi says over here Bitsalusa. Right, Yaser is going to mean Lashon va'asra. So we're going to see, one says Yaser, one says Yaser. Man da Amar Yaser kidar minon, leman da Amar Ye Aser maihi. What does Ye Aser mean? The Sanya b'Megillas Taanis called Inish diyaisi iluye mekadmanas dina Ye Aser. So Keitzad Yachid shekib alav sheni v'chamishi v'sheni shakal hashana kula. So we'll say here's the case of the conflict with Megillas Taanis. I accepted upon myself Bahab. Right, I fast Bahab the whole year. That's accepted upon myself. Monday, fast throughout the year. And then what happens? So then what happens? V'iru bo yomim tovim aksum Megillas Taanis. The Rebbe say, lo and behold, what occurs? The rabbis institute a new Yom Tiv. right? Meaning what? They add something to Megillas Taanis, and it happens to be that their addition falls out on a Monday or a Thursday. So what's the halacha? Im nidra kodem l'gzeiraseinu, if my neder of Bahab precedes their gzeira of the Yom Tiv, then what? Yibatal nidro es gzeiraseinu. Then my fast trumps the Yom Tiv. But if the Yom Tiv came before my neder of Bahab, tibatal gzeiraseinu es nidro. Ultimately, again, their gezerah will be mevatel my neder. So we'll say this is just an aside. That if there's a conflict between my personal fast and Megillas Taanis, who wins? It depends, right? What came first? If Chazal's legislation of the minor Yom Tiv came before my neder, then ultimately, again, I can't observe the fast, right? The Yom Tiv is docha my neder. But if my neder to fast came before their legislation of this minor Yom Tiv, then ultimately, again, my neder wins. I will say, but what about halacha l'maisa? When do you have to accept the fast? I will say, we pass like Shmuel, that if you're going to accept a fast, so today it's Wednesday, and I'm going to accept the fast for Thursday, I do that Kabbalah during Mincha. And we say during Mincha, that means Tfilas Mincha. So at some insertion in Shema Koleinu or somewhere else, you go ahead and you Mekabel Taanis for the next day. Tan Rabbanon. Ad Masei Ochel B'Shoseh. Shabbos, interestingly enough, in these situations where I'm only observing a daytime fast. So remember again, this is true for the fast mentioned in the Mishnah, where Yechidim are fasting, but they're only fasting from the morning until night. So at what point in time, at Maseh Ocha V'Shoseh, so I'm allowed to eat the night before, right? So again, so let's just keep focusing on the Mishnah. The Talmidei Chachamim are going to fast because there's no rain, so they're allowed to eat. So let's say they're fasting on Thursday. They're allowed to eat the entire Wednesday night. Just comes Thursday morning, we'll call it comes Thursday morning, they have to start fasting. So the Gemara says, Ad Maseh Ocha V'Shoseh. So essentially, until what point in time could they eat? In other words, what time in the morning does the fast start? So the Gemara says, Ad Shiala Amud HaShachar Divrei Rebbe. Rebbe says, dawn. Rabbi Eliezer Shimon Omer Ad Kros HaGever. Rabbi Eliezer Shimon says no until the rooster crows. Rashi says Ad Kros HaGever. 4 lines up from the bottom. Afilu Pam Rishona Kamer Midkamer Gabi Yosef. We're supposed to say the idea seems to be that Allah Chalamaysa, the rooster crowing, is even a little bit earlier than dawn. So machlok is it dawn? Is a little bit earlier than dawn? But the idea is that you could eat throughout the entire night. Now watch this. Amar Abaye Lo Shano Ela Shelo Gamar Suudasal. Aval Gamar Suudaso Einu Ocha. Abaye says, but 1 second. When we say you could eat the whole night, what does that mean? You could eat at night until you finish your Suuda. But once nighttime comes, right? Once you finish your nighttime Suuda, that's it. You're done. You can't eat anymore. So the Gemara says, really? Yeah, we learned elsewhere that in the night before a Taanis, even if once you finish your Suuda, you could continue to go ahead and eat even after your Suuda is over. Hasam kishlo silek. That's when they didn't remove the table, says the Gemara. Ige de Amri, others explain, Amar Rava, Lo shano ela kishlo yashan. Oh, Rava said the night before a Taanis, halacha l'maisa, you could eat the entire night until you go to sleep. But the assumption is that once you go to sleep, you are accepting upon yourself the Taanis. Aval yashan ino ochel. But once you go to sleep, ultimately again the fast begins. Abaye says really, yashan va'amad harei ochel. The Abaye says, here's the case. Person goes to sleep on the night before a Taanis, and then he gets up. The halacha is he's still allowed to eat. The Gemara says, no. Hasam memisnande. That's the case where he didn't really go to sleep. He's dozing. So Avos says, the Gemara, hechi dami misnamne. Ultimately, again, what's misnamne? So Rav Ashi says, I'm a beis, nim velo nim, tir velo tir. I'm asleep, but not asleep. Awake, but not awake. Dikari leva'ani. Ultimately, again, if somebody calls my name, I'll answer. V'lo yada la adure svara. But I don't know really how to answer anything way too deep. V'chi mitkar le mitkar. And if somebody reminds me of something, I'll remember. Right, we'll say this is most people throughout the day, right? So I'm just, so I'll say, so this is misnamne. So we'll say, so the Gemara says that halacha l'maisa. So we'll say, so this is actually a very important halacha. Because the Shulchan Aruch quotes this. In general, when the next day is a fast day, and I will say again, you fill in the blank. Taanis Esther, Shivasar B'Tammuz, Asara B'Teves, all of the what we call the minor fast days, which begin in the morning. The halacha is once you go to sleep at night, the fast begins. The Mishnah Berurah says, therefore, if you plan on waking up early the next morning to eat or to drink, you must go to sleep with a t'nai. You must make a condition to do so. Because without a condition to do so, the automatic assumption is once I go to sleep, or for that matter, again, a person wakes up in the middle of the night to drink something, without that condition to do so, the automatic default assumption is that when I go to sleep, the Taanis begins. So this is really important because many of us who need our coffee often wake up early before a Taanis in order to eat, in order to drink. So halacha l'maisa, one really has to make a t'nai. One really has to articulate the fact, I'm not accepting the Taanis until tomorrow morning, at alos, because I'm waking up early to eat and drink something. I will say that's this Gemara. Beautiful. Says the Gemara, Amar Rav Kana, Amar Rav Yochid shekiva alav Taanis, asa b'nila sasandal. Chayshinon Shema Taanis Tzibar Kibalos. Well, it's a very interesting halacha. If when an individual accepts upon himself a fast, he's not allowed to wear shoes. Not allowed to wear shoes. Why? Because we're choshesh that maybe he accepted a communal fast day upon himself. Now, what does this mean? As we're going to go ahead and go through this sugya, we're going to see, as I mentioned to you, there are like three different types of fasts, right? There's a Taanis Sha'os, there's a Taanis Yochid, there's a Taanis Tzibor. We're going to see each of these types of fasts really have their own unique halachas. Taanis Tzibor, a communal fast day, being the most significant and stringent of all of the fast days. So one of the ways in which a Taanis Tzibor is different is you don't wear shoes during a Taanis Tzibor. See, interestingly enough, the Gemara says as follows. What happens if an individual accepts upon himself a fast? So Rav says that halacha l'maisa, you shouldn't wear shoes even during your Taanis Yachid. Why? Because maybe you had in mind to accept upon yourself a Taanis Tzibor. Now it sounds strange that an individual would have in mind to accept upon himself a Taanis Tzibor. What that means is maybe the individual had in mind to accept upon himself a Taanis Yachid that's structured like a Taanis Tzibor. And therefore you shouldn't wear shoes during your Taanis Yachid. So the Gemara says, hey, Laib, so what should you do? In other words, how do you avoid this? This is what you should say. So we'll say it's very simple. How do you avoid this issue? By mincha time, so I'm accepting a fast for Thursday. By mincha time on Wednesday, I should say, tomorrow I am accepting upon myself a Taanis Yachid. Say it. Just say. Don't say I'm accepting upon myself a Taanis, but I'm accepting upon myself a Taanis Yachid, an individual fast day. And therefore, we'll say in that case, there'll be no problem wearing shoes. The Rabbanan said to Rav Sheshas, Haka Chazinan Rabbanan Dinesami Mesanayu Va'asul Beit Tanisa. So listen to this. So the Rabbanan said to Rav Sheshas, I see the other rabbinic scholars, the other Rabbanim, right, who are wearing their shoes, and yet they're going to the shul for davening. So we'll say, this was a Taanis Tzibor. Because remember again, the Rabbanan are saying to Rav Sheshas, how is it that the Rabbanim are wearing shoes on a Taanis Tzibor, right? They're wearing their shoes to go to shul. So ikbid. So Rav Sheshas was very upset. Va'amar lahu, Dilma mechal nami achal. Well, maybe they're eating too, right? And as Rav Sheshas was very displeased about their behavior, and halacha l'maisa, ultimately again said maybe they're not fasting at all. So just by the way, it's always important to be malami tzchus on a yid. Always important to find something positive. So perhaps the reason why the Rabbanim were wearing shoes, they remember again, the case is very specific. They're wearing shoes to go to shul. But say it's halach and Shulchan Aruch that even in fast days, Yom Kippur, Tisha B'Av, where you're not allowed to wear shoes, if a person doesn't have non-leather shoes to wear and they need to walk outside, you are permitted to go ahead and wear your shoes outside. Right? So I have to get to shul. I don't have non-leather shoes. So again, I can wear my shoes outside to get to shul. When I come to shul, I have to take off my shoes. So perhaps that's what's happening with the Rabbanim over here. Because again, the Lashon of is very specific. It's saying, they're putting on their shoes ultimately to go to shul. Okay, just living with schos. Abai v'Rava ma'ayli ki misaimi apansa. So Abai and Rava on communal fast days, what would they do? They would only wear the upper part of their shoe. So they would put on the upper part of the shoe, and I guess not wear the sole of the shoe. This way, again, the shoe would provide them some level of protection, but they would still experience the affliction. Zutra, Michlefei di Yamina, the small Yamina. Meremar Marzutra on public fast days would switch their right and left shoes. So they would wear their shoes on their wrong feet, right? Thereby again achieving some level of discomfort. Rabbanan de Ravashi, Nafki ki archayu. The Rabbanan ultimately again of the Yeshiva Ravashi on a tiny Sibor went out in a normal fashion, which I will say sounds like they just wore their shoes. Savri ki had Amar Shmuel, because they held like Shmuel. What did Shmuel say? The Shmuel said the Amar Shmuel, Ein Taanis Tzibor beBavel Ela Tisha B'Av Bilvad. So I will say they held. We actually quoted this 2 days ago. They held like Shmuel. That's what, in general, the concept of a Taanis Tzibor does not apply in Bavel. The concept of a Taanis Tzibor only applies in Eretz Yisrael. And I will say again, which seems to be supported by everything we've learned up until now, because the Taanis Tzibor, as we're learning it now, is really a result of rain or lack of rain, which was observed in Eretz Yisrael. So again, interesting for both sides. It's fascinating to see, does the whole concept of a Taanis Tzibor, a communal fast day, apply in the diaspora at all, or is this a halacha only for Eretz Yisrael? Now again, obviously, there's going to be at least one Taanis Tzibor, which is Tisha B'Av, right? And that's going to be observed outside of Eretz Yisrael as well. Amar Rabbi Yehuda Marav, Lo ve'adam ta'nisu pareya. This is very interesting. Literally, a person could borrow against his fast and pay it back at a different time. And we'll say, what does that mean? That if I had taken upon myself to fast, but now there's some other compelling reason, we'll discuss the definition of a compelling reason not to fast, I could eat on that day and what? So to speak, pay back my obligation, fast on a different day. So the Gemara says, Ki amrisei kamei de Shmuel, when I said over this halacha in front of Shmuel, Amrali, v'chi neder kibal alei, de lo sagi de lo mishalim, l'tzaurei nafshe kibal alei, I matzi mitzar nafshe, I lo matzi lo mitzar nafshe. So when I said this over in front of Shmuel, Shmuel said, yeah, that's not a big deal. Because we'll say, interestingly enough, Shmuel doesn't view the acceptance of a Taanis Yachid as a neder. He says, this isn't a neder. What am I accepting upon myself? I'm accepting upon myself to put myself in discomfort. Right? So if I do it, I do it. If I don't do it, I don't do it. In other words, Shmuel did not feel that this has the status of like a neder, that a person has to go ahead and start being worried about, do I have to fulfill this or not? So I said, I'm going to fast. So I'm accepting upon myself discomfort. If I choose to honor that, fine. If I choose not to honor it, fine as well. Ikada an alternate version of this. Amarav, Love Adam Tanisa Uporea. So we'll say an alternate version of this exchange. So Rav said, literally a person could borrow against his fast and pay it back at a different time, which again means I could go ahead and choose not to observe the fast today, but to observe it at a different time. When I said this over in front of Shmuel, Amrali Pshita, he said to me, this is obvious. Lo yehe ella neder. Neder mi matzi bay l'shalumi amazal l'machar u'liyoma achrina. Shabbos say, so again, in this version, Shmuel said, yeah, of course that works. Why? Because this is no different than any other neder. In other words, Rabbi say, when I make a neder, I have an obligation to what? To fulfill it. But what do I have the latitude for or with? Right? When to fulfill it. So even though, again, I articulated this as a neder I'm going to fulfill tomorrow, if there's some compelling reason I can't fulfill it tomorrow, ultimately, again, I could fulfill it a different day as well. So the Gemara says, let's continue with this. Rav Yoshua Brei Rav Idi Ikla Lebei Rav Asi. So we'll say, watch this. So Rav Yoshua, the son of Rav Idi, went to the house of Rav Asi. Of Dulei Igla Tilsa. They made from Rav Asi Igla Tilsa. Igla Tilsa was the finest dish, right? Either a calf that has achieved 1/3 maturity or a third born calf. But this was a delicacy. Okay, so what happens? So they make this Rav Yoshua. Amrulei Litom. He said, Rav Yoshua, Rabbi, eat something. So Amrulei Litom Marmidi. Amrulei, to which Rav Yoshua responds, Betanisa Yasivna. I would, but I'm fasting. Amrulei, Velo Zifmar Velifra. don't worry about it. Just eat today and fast tomorrow. In other words, it's not a problem. Right? I will say, by the way, you see something very interesting. We still got the idea that for a compelling reason, one could go ahead and switch their fast day to a different reason. Halacha considers compelling reasons iglatilsa, right? Ain't compelling gedola mizo, right? So that you have somebody offers you iglatilsa, you take it. But I was saying, in all seriousness, what we begin to see is compelling doesn't actually have to be compelling, right? Compelling just means like some reason, right? Some legitimate reason that you want to push it off. So he said to Rabbi Yeshua, just eat today and you'll fast the next day. To which lo sara lamar lahadam Rabbi Yehuda Rav. Don't you hold of what Rav said? Lo va'adam taniso uporeya. Rav said that Allah lamaisa. Literally again, you could borrow against your fast. Just be paid a different day. See, even though you accepted upon yourself to fast today, eat today, fast a different day. Amar Lahud Basi, this is incredible. To which Rabbi Yeshua responded, you're right. I do hold of that. This is a different fast. I'm not fasting a Taanis Yachid. I'm fasting a Taanis Cholamhu. I am fasting because I had a bad dream. There's a concept of a Taanis Cholam, which is the fast that one fasts when they have a bad dream. Generally, Taanis Cholam has to do with the fast in which one dreams that either they themselves died or someone close to them died. So there's a concept of fasting for a negative dream like that. Just by the way, if you remember again back to our brachas days, we had a three-way machlokas about the impact or the truthfulness of dreams. There are three schools of thought, right? One school of thought says dreams are meaningless. Other school of thought says dreams are meaningful. Third school of thought says every dream has a combination of both. Every dream has elements of truth and has elements of nothingness. Havel. Right? So interestingly enough, so in general, we don't put too much stock in dreams. But halacha l'maisa, if one has a more traumatic dream, that halacha says should be addressed. This is where the concept of Taanis Cholam comes up. To which Rav says, Yafet Taanis Cholam lecholam keish lenuras. That a Taanis Cholam is good for a bad dream, like fire is to straw, like fire is to flax. The same way that fire will incinerate straw, so too again a Taanis Cholam has the ability to negate any potential negative byproducts that may come from a bad dream. Amar Rav Chisda ubo bayom. Rabbi said that's only true if when do you have to observe the Taanis Cholam? The day of. In other words, I had the dream last night, I observe it today. Rav Yosef afilu b'Shabbos. Rabbi said this is actually incredible. Taanis Cholam is so significant that what? That a person even goes ahead and observes it even on Shabbos itself. And we'll say, pretty incredible. My takante, we'll say, here's the problem. You're not allowed to fast on Shabbos. So how could it be that halacha l'maisa you're able to observe a Taanis Cholam? So you see from here the severity, the significance of a Taanis Cholam. You're even allowed to observe a Taanis Cholam on Shabbos. However, if you observe a Taanis Cholam on Shabbos, you have to fast again. Why do you have to fast? For the sin of fasting on Shabbos. Only Jews have stuff like this, right? So I have an obligation to fast, right? I have an obligation to fast on Shabbos, my Taanis Cholam, but halacha l'maisa, if I fast on Shabbos, I have to fast again for fasting on Shabbos. My takante, so we'll say, what's the remedy for fasting on Shabbos? Leisif ta'anisa l'ta'anisa. You fast another day to make up for your fast. You fast in order to make up for the fast. Also, I just point out something very interesting. So the concept of Taanis Cholam is very real. But say, what does a person do if a person can't fast? Right? Because again, there are a number. So a person has a bad dream, they can't fast. So again, the halacha brings down tzedakah. Right? What one can't accomplish ultimately, again, through a fast day, one is able to accomplish through the giving of tzedakah. Good about, so let's begin the Mishnah. Aru elav lo nanu. What happens if the first 3 fast days go by and it still hasn't rained? Beis Din goes from Gimel Tanios Acheros Ala Tzibor. Then I will say next 3 fast days. Now remember again, whereas the first 3 fast days were only upon Yechidin, right? Only upon individuals, Talmidei Chachamim. The second 3 fast days are now going to be upon who? The Tzibor. The Tzibor. Ochlin v'shosim v'od yom. Now same idea, these fast days only begin at dawn. right? So they don't apply the night before. So you could eat and you could drink the night before. However, these are a bit more intense because now this is a Taanis tzibor. So therefore, on the day of the fast itself, you can't do malacha, you can't wash, you can't anoint, you can't wear shoes. Tashmish shamita, marital relations are asur. V'nolan asamer chatzos. We also lock the bathhouses. Avru elu v'lo nanu. What happens if halacha l'maisa now? Both say, so this is now the second set of 3. First 3 yichidim, second 3 taanis tzibor. What happens now if the second 3 go by and there's still no rain? Beis Din goes around lane od sheva, another 7 fast days. Shein yud gimel tanios for a total of 13 fast days altogether. First 3 yichidim, second 3 tzibor, last 6 tzibor. And these last 6 are even more chomer than the first. Because these are also we daven. We'll see there's special davening that goes on, and also blowing of the chatzos ros or shofros, I should say. We lock the stores, no commerce. So also when we lock the stores, by the way, on Mondays, because remember these are Monday, Thursday, Monday fasts often. On Mondays we'll open up the stores before nightfall, so people could buy what they need for that night to break the fast. However, again, on Thursdays, we leave the stores open the entire time so that people should be able to purchase what they need for Shabbos. If these fast days, these last 6 fast days go by, these last 7 fast days go by, still no rain, we diminish business dealings, building, planting, marriage, greeting one another, like people who have been chastised before HaKadosh Baruch Hu. Individuals, Talmidei Chacham, continue to fast until the end of Nisan. Yatsa Nisan, the Yardu Geshamim. If Nisan then comes and then it rains after Nisan, Siman Klala. This is a sign of divine displeasure. So because we're going to see at a certain point in time, rain actually becomes detrimental. We'll stop over here. Shkoyach.